Jonathan Hall here. Today I want to talk about how to investigate Git history to aid in debugging. Specifically, I'm going to use an example of an open source project we use at my work, which recently broke some of our tests due to a change it introduced. I will show how to use Git from both the command line as well as through the GitHub interface to learn about the reasons for a change to help you decide how to fix it. So the project I'm working on uses the Echo framework for Go, and I wanted to update to the latest version. When I did so, a number of our tests broke, as you can see here. So the tests that log error messages suddenly had a new internal equals nil field, which kind of looks weird, possibly a bug. But I wanted to investigate and understand why this happened. Know that the data type, so in this case, I know that the data type that is outputting the new unusual message is called HTTP error. So I'm going to look for that in the source code of Echo. So here I can see that this is defined within the echo.go file. So let me look at that. And what I see here is that there's an internal field. This looks like a good candidate for what's going on, but when and why was this added? To answer that question, I can click up here on blame. So here I can see that these two lines were last modified 7 months ago in this commit. And click on this, this link here, and I can see the details. Apparently this was a commit to enhance default HTTP error handler. Now here I can see that the internal field was already there, but it was modified. The JSON tags were added. That doesn't really affect me here as far as I know. Aha, this is interesting. In this commit, the internal field was added to the error method, which would clearly explain the behavior I observed. So that was fairly straightforward, but let's imagine I need to go back even further in history, which is not uncommon. Suppose I'm not only interested in when internal was added to the error output, but I'm also interested in when that field was added to the struct here. As we can see from this change, the field already existed, it was just modified. How do I go back even further? Well, in GitHub, that's fairly simple. If I go back to my blame page, and I look at the line we looked at before, so right here, notice this little icon right here. You hover over it, it says view blame prior to this change. So this shows the blame, but from a previous point in history. If I click on that, and look for my struct again, now I can see that the internal field was added 2 years ago. If I click on this, it will show me that commit. So here, actually, internal was renamed from inner. So this probably isn't far enough back in history. Let's go back to the previous page. And once again, let's view this blame prior to this change. Search again for what I'm interested in. And we see inner was added 3 years ago. Why don't we look at that and see what that tells us? This is truly where it was added. So when and why was inner added in the first place? Let's look at the description. It adds a custom error for JavaScript web tokens, and it adds a new inner field to store an error from an external dependency. So apparently some feature was added related to JWTs, JavaScript web tokens, and this was needed for that. So that's how you can use history through GitHub. Why don't I also show you now how to do it through the command line? So here I've checked out a local copy of Echo. You can see that here. And I want to, just as before, I want to find where the HTTP error type is defined. I'm going to use git grep for that. I know it's a struct, which makes my search a little bit easier. All right, so it's only defined in one place. see if I can find that here. And here is the internal field that I'm looking for. So I want to know when that was added. So from the command line, I can do a git blame, and then the file I'm interested in, echo.go. Now if I search for that line, I will see information that is not unlike what we saw in the GitHub interface. This particular line we can see was last modified on this date by this committer. So what I'm interested in though is this git hash. This is where that change was made. So I can now look at that. I'm going to do a git show first of that commit. This shows the actual diff. You may recall this from the GitHub exercise. Here we see the internal error was changed but not created here. We can also see up here the description of the change. So once again, this is not sufficient to answer our question, but let's see what else changed here. I know that in Go, the error output is defined in a function called error. So let me search for that. And sure enough, as expected, we see that internal was added to the output in this commit. So mystery solved. But just for the sake of the exercise, let's look back further in history here to see when that internal field was added in the first place. So to look at the git blame at a previous point in history, I do the same command, but now I need to paste the SHA. Now the problem with just this command, let me show you, is that I still see the changes as of that commit. What I actually need to do is start from the one prior to that. I put this caret on the command line. That does that. So now when I look at this, I see changes prior to the previous SHA. Now I'll look at this one. I see the description, and I see once again that internal was actually renamed from inner. So let's look at history from that point. Paste the SHA, again a caret to do the one before. And here we see that inner, the line with inner was last modified at this SHA. And as we recall, this commit adds custom errors for JWT support, etc. We can see this is indeed where inner was added. I hope this video has been helpful for you, and I hope you can use this knowledge to improve your code detective skills in the future. Please leave any questions in the comments below, and be sure to like and subscribe.